How will you serve the world? What do they need that your talent can provide? So the effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back for episode 3 of Swiss Cheese and Beats. My name is Daniel Ascari. Today we're going to get into some playing, talk about a couple of strokes. So in episode 2, we finished out the grip. If you haven't watched that episode and you're a little uncertain about a couple of things in your grip, there is a link in the description. Or if this happens to be your very first episode, go back to episode 1 and then make your way back here. Let's get to the playing. So today we're going to be talking about the rebound stroke and the downstroke. These are 2 of the 4 strokes that I teach. The first stroke is a rebound stroke, and every stroke has a starting and stopping position. So a rebound stroke is going to start with what would be in the high position here and end in the same position. So a rebound stroke is going to start here, strike the drum, and return to the same position. If I just held the stick by the fulcrum and I struck the drum, the energy that's created from the stick touching the pad is going to push or rebound my stick back up, like so. So in episode 2, we talked about these back 3 fingers were called the brakes, and we had this saying that said the brakes are always on. So when I play a rebound stroke, my back 3 fingers are going to stay on the stick, but I'm going to allow the stick to naturally rebound off the head of the pad. So if I were to play rebound strokes non-stop and I started in the high position, it would look something like this. Obviously, in marching percussion, you never see people come out and then prep here and then start playing. So obviously we have to account for getting to the high position first. Something that I like to do as a for now rule, and I'm going to throw these in there every once in a while. Again, it's just something to get you from point A to point B until it becomes second nature. I like to think of bringing the stick up to the prep position on the and of 4. Most things start with a tap off. The tap off is usually 2 measures, right? 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And on that last one, the exercise starts. So something I like to tell students when they're having an issue when it comes to prepping is to start their prep on the and of 4. Something you need to keep in mind is when you start the prep is determined by the tempo you are about to play. So if I'm playing extremely slow, I'm going to have a little bit more time for that prep motion. So if my tap off were going 1, 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. On the and of 4, I would turn my wrist to lift the stick up, and that'll get me to the high position to play rebound strokes. So I'm going to tap myself off in the left hand, start rebound strokes in my right hand, and I'm going to end with the stick in the high position. Now the second stroke we're going to talk about is the downstroke. The downstroke starts in the high position just like the rebound stroke, except it's going to end low. So you're in the high position, the downstroke is going to go straight down and stop where my left stick is at. So in episode 2, we discussed how the back 3 fingers were called the brakes. This is where they come into play. These back 3 fingers are going to stay on the stick, but to keep that stick down, what I'm going to do is just keep my hand in a closed position, and that's going to allow the stick to stay down. So one more time, here's a downstroke, start in the high position, we're going to end down. Now there's a lot of different roads we can take going down just in this one stroke, but there's something else that you need to be very careful about when you're playing, whether it's on a pad or a drum. You want to be very aware of the sound you're creating. Now sound is just vibration. So if you take a guitar and you pluck the string vibrates and creates a sound. With percussion, specifically talking about a drum, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that it's the drum that is the only thing that produces a sound. Well, a lot of what has to do with the sound that you create is how you hold your sticks. Now, I don't mean technically, I'm talking about grip pressure. So there are two different types of sounds that I'm going to play for you simply by clicking my sticks together. The first one's going to be very thin and sound a bit choked off. The second one's going to be a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more full. The only thing I changed between those two types of sounds was how much I was squeezing the sticks. A lot of people have a tendency to over squeeze the stick, not letting the stick vibrate, which is sound, and you end up getting a thin sound like so. Instead, make sure you have all points of contact on the stick, the brakes are always on, but you're not squeezing the vibration from the stick. That way when you click them together, you get a full sound. So how would that sound on a pad? On this pad, if I choke off the stick, two things are going to happen. One, the stick is not going to be allowed to naturally rebound off the head, so then I would have to physically pull the stick back up, synthetically creating a rebound, and two, the sound is going to be very thin. You know, the other unique thing about percussion that's different from wind instruments is people can visually see our technical approach. Think of a trumpet player or a woodwind player. When they have the mouthpiece on their embouchure or inside of their mouth, you cannot physically see what their tongue, their jaw, their throat, what all of those things are doing. With us, you can actually see how it is that we're producing sound. So it's very important that you're not only aware of this, but you're very attentive to details. So now, here's rebound strokes with me allowing the stick to vibrate in my hand, naturally rebound off, but while keeping the brakes always on. If you're playing match grip, obviously it should feel the same. In reality, there are 3 of the 5 natural senses that we have that you need to be thinking about and taking into consideration whenever you play. The first one is going to be touch, right? If you're playing match grip, whatever your strong hand is, you want to make sure that your weak hand feels exactly the same as your strong hand. The second one then would be look. If your hands feel the same, there's a very good chance that they're also going to look the same. And the last sense, obviously because it is music, is going to be sound. So now if your hands feel and look the same while you're playing, most likely they're going to sound the same. Now moving on to traditional grip, everything we discussed about a rebound stroke in our right hand applies to our left hand. The stick again needs to naturally rebound off the drum head or off the pad back into the high position. The brakes in your left hand are going to be your ring finger and your pinky finger. Now the only difference with your brakes in the left hand is that these 2 fingers will not always be on the stick. The reason that is because of the rotation of the wrist we're taking in the left hand. Now if you were to put your stick out like this and you held the stick up with your right hand or your other stick and you relaxed your left hand, you're going to see my ring finger come off the stick. That is my hand relaxed. Here I am consciously putting my ring finger on the stick. But again, back to a relaxed position, the fingers naturally come off the stick. Now whenever you play anything in your left hand, remember that the ring finger is going to be the finger that supports the rotation of the wrist to lift the stick. Now once I get going and start playing rebound strokes, I'm no longer going to need that ring finger to stay on the stick, because then the natural rebound from the stick striking the head is going to push the stick back up, and I'm going to keep these top 3 fingers in place no matter what it is I play to control the stick. So here are some rebound strokes in the left hand, and you should be able to see my ring finger come off the stick once I start. And again, I'm not trying to pull these fingers back. All I'm doing is relaxing and the fingers naturally come off the stick. Now, downstroke in the left hand is when you're going to reintroduce the ring finger to help stop the stick. So the ring finger is going to help lift the stick. You're in a high position. You're going to strike the drum, and in order to keep the stick down, the ring finger is going to help secure the stick. Once again, rotate up, ring finger helps lift, and downstroke. So now utilizing these 2 strokes, we're going to go over a very basic exercise that I'm sure all of you have heard of called 8 on a hand. Now 8 on a hand is just simply you play 8 notes on each hand. How you've seen it written may differ. There are many different variations that other people will play, whether it's a countdown or 8-7 or 7-8 or whatever it is. It's the same concept though. So the exercise in a shortened version looks something like this. So let's break this down. I have 8 eighth notes. The first 7 are going to be rebound strokes, meaning they're going to start in the high position, they're going to end in the high position. But the last eighth note of each measure is going to be a downstroke. So we have 7 rebounds and 1 downstroke. So together it should look like this. In the left hand, same thing, 7 rebounds, 1 downstroke. Now, a very important part of playing any exercise is the transition. The transition happens when you're moving from one hand to another. A lot of the really fundamental exercises work individual hands. And in order to make everything seamless, you have to be sure that you're executing a transition correctly. So earlier we discussed about prepping the stick on the and of 4. In 8 on a hand, for every transition, I'm going to prep the new hand on the and of 4. Focusing on the and of 4 in the non-playing hand isn't something you're going to have to always do. You may have to spend some time really concentrating on that in the beginning. However, the idea behind practice is to make sure that you do something so much that it becomes muscle memory, where then it becomes second nature. At that time, you can then focus your attention on a higher level of execution. So one more time, I'll play 8 on a hand for you. This time I'll play the full cycle. And again, watch how my non-playing hand preps on the and of 4 in order to create seamless, smooth transitions. One last thing about 8 on a hand. I think a lot of people get fooled into thinking that it's a very simple exercise, so you don't really have to engage when it comes to thinking and focus, and that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, this is a very simple exercise that many people play wrong. And most of the time, it really doesn't have anything to do with ability or talent, it has everything to do with focus. There are even times where you'll see great players sometimes mentally check out when they're playing 8 on a hand. You can't allow yourself to do that. Just remember that the more attention to detail you give these basic fundamental exercises, the easier it will be for you to execute the more challenging music. That's all for this episode of Swiss Cheese and Beats. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you tune back in for episode 4, where we're going to finish off the 4 types of strokes with upstrokes and taps. We'll see you next time.